Welcome to the program. In the past half hour, there have been reports of gunfire at the Ain al-Hilwa refugee camp in the south of Lebanon. It's believed the clashes were taking place near an army position at the northern entrance of the camp. Our correspondent Mike Hanna joins me now on the line for the latest. Mike, thanks for joining us. What more can you tell us on these latest clashes?
Well, certainly it does seem to be pretty intense fighting there, according to eyewitnesses on the scene. Essentially what happened is that a Lebanese army outpost right on the edge of the Ain al-Hilwa camp came under fire from militants belonging to the Junt al-Sham faction. Now, this faction, also a Sunni fundamentalist group, much like Fatah al-Islam, have been threatening for a period of time now that they will be taking action should intense action be taken against Fatah al-Islam in the camp to the north. So here we have a situation where in the south of Lebanon, a conflict developing with the Lebanese army, once again involving a splinter faction, the Junt al-Sham movement. We understand from Fatah leaders in that camp that there has been an ongoing problem with this particular faction. They have attempted to keep control in that particular area, but at this stage appears to have failed to have done so. There have been numerous clashes in the camp between Junt al-Sham and other mainstream Palestinian factions. There have also been a series of clashes in a period of time involving Junt al-Sham and the Lebanese army. The faction actually moved into the camp, we are told, in 2004, and since then there have been sporadic clashes between other Palestinian militia groups and the Lebanese army. So a serious situation developing here. The exact scale of it, not very clear at present, but certainly the fire there ongoing in a clash between yet another Palestinian splinter group and the Lebanese army.
Yeah, this splinter group that you mentioned, Junt al-Sham, do they have the same agenda as Fatah al-Islam?
Well, very similar in terms of what they have said. They have made clear as well their support of Fatah al-Islam. They are, as I said, a Sunni fundamentalist group. They have also spoken in the past in favor of Al-Qaeda. So certainly it is a very similar group in terms of ideology. It is a very similar group as well in terms of its function within the camp. One of the reasons why this faction actually moved into this camp is because Ain al-Hilwa is a massive sprawling refugee camp, also regarded as one of the most lawless of the 12 Palestinian camps scattered around Lebanon, and certainly a cloak perhaps around which this faction has been able to carry on its activities. The exact size of the faction, once again, not very clear. Most observers put its numbers at anywhere between 60 and 100, so certainly a much smaller group, it is believed, than the Fatah al-Islam militants in the camp to the north. But once again, very similar ideology, very similar output, very similar background, and also have made very clear in the past 3 weeks that they are in support of the Fatah al-Islam militants to the north.
Mike, thanks for that for the moment. Mike Hanna in southern Lebanon. And the fighting is continuing in and around Tripoli's Nahr al-Barid refugee camp. Aid agencies say they're concerned food and water are in short supply, and there's still no opportunity for civilians trapped inside the camp to escape the fighting. Our correspondent Zaina Khudr is just outside the camp.
The Lebanese army's offensive is continuing. The sound of explosions and machine gun fire. Security sources telling us that the Lebanese army is advancing into the camp a few hundred meters, trying to tighten its grip on the Fatah Islam fighters who are continuing to refuse to surrender. It's very difficult for us to independently confirm what is going on the ground, but with the sound of machine guns and the explosions, the army is bent on wiping out Fatah Islam, and they are making advances. Unlike the past 2 days, we are not hearing a lot of shelling and bombardment. It is mostly machine guns, which means that street battles are most likely taking place. Now, as the fighting continues, the civilians who remain trapped inside the camp, there's a lot of concern about their safety as well as their well-being. There aren't any relief supplies. There is a lack of water, medical supplies. A lot of the people who are still inside are the elderly and the disabled, unable to flee. We do know that one Palestinian civilian was able to be evacuated earlier today, but thousands still remain inside. Zaina Khudr, Al-Jazeera, on the outskirts of Nahr al-Barid.
Now, despite vows by the Lebanese government to defeat Fatah al-Islam, a spokesman for the group has told Al Jazeera that they're still in charge of the camp and will not give up their fight.
we have a good number of fighters, and we are inflicting grave damages on the part of the Lebanese army. And on our end, we have suffered very little damage. And I would like to confirm that we are, and Fatah al-Islam, in total control of the battlefield. We are also in total control of the exits and entrances of the camp. However, I cannot give an accurate estimation of the fatalities among the Lebanese army, but all I can say that they have suffered grave losses and fatalities. And we are in total control, and we have the upper hand in the fighting at the moment. We will never surrender. We will never give in. We will fight till the last drop of blood.
Now, a suicide bomber has targeted the home of Somalia's Prime Minister Ali Mohammed Ghedi. The attacker forced his car through a roadblock, provoking gunfire from the Prime Minister's guards. He then rammed into a wall, detonating his device and injuring several people. It's not known if the Prime Minister was home at the time of the explosion. The US Secretary of Defense Robert Gates has urged Turkey not to launch military operations in northern Iraq. Turkish tanks and troops have been massing along the country's southeastern border with Iraq in the past week. Turkey says Iraq's northern Kurdistan region is a refuge for fighters from the Kurdish Workers' Party, or PKK. It's described as a terrorist organization by Turkey and several other countries. Meanwhile, Turkey says it's opposed to a referendum on whether the oil-rich city of Kirkuk in northern Iraq should become part of the country's Kurdistan region. Ankara says if the city's 800,000 residents vote yes, the PKK will be strengthened by oil revenues. But as our Iraq correspondent Huda Abdel Hamid reports, not everyone in Kirkuk is happy about the plans.
Musa was 26 years old when his family was expelled from Kirkuk as part of an Arabization policy adopted by the Saddam regime. It meant that thousands of Kurds were forcibly deported and their land confiscated. That was in July 1988. He's been living for the past 18 years in a refugee camp on the outskirts of Erbil, but never considered it home.
My heart's still in Kirkuk. It's my home. It's where I was born. I have to protect the land of my birth.
And since the fall of Saddam, he's been waiting for the day he will be allowed to vote with his blood, he says, and return Kirkuk to the Kurds. The refugees here have been waiting for years to go back home. Even the small ones say Kirkuk is their homeland. They want the referendum to go ahead on time. They say it's their constitutional right. In fact, Article 140 of the new Iraqi constitution calls for normalization of Kirkuk, meaning that Arabs who were brought in by the former regime must go back to their hometowns, and the Kurds expelled must return. And a referendum must be held before the end of 2007. But the referendum is bitterly opposed by the Arabs and Turkmen also living in the city. They accuse the Kurds of ethnic cleansing, trying to turn Kirkuk into an exclusively Kurdish city. They also claim oil-rich Kirkuk as theirs. But since 2003, Kurds have become, for the first time, key power brokers in the new Iraq. They've managed to make of the future of Kirkuk their own constitutional right. Tensions have risen over the past year. Bombs and killings are slowly eroding hopes for a peaceful settlement among the three communities. And pressure is mounting from Baghdad, Washington and Turkey to postpone the referendum. The fear is that it will open a new front and drag the so far peaceful north into the civil war ravaging the rest of Iraq.
What's the value of a victory that's not going to bring stability? So the tough question for the Kurds is for Kirkuk, for the referendum in Kirkuk to take place in a way that is going to benefit the Kurds and not harm them.
The Kurdish government says, on the contrary, holding the referendum would help strengthen ties with Baghdad and warn of dire consequences if it doesn't happen. If the pressure becomes too much for you to postpone the referendum, is there a possibility for the Kurds to pull out of the central government?
Options are open for the Kurds, really. And I am telling you, it will be disaster for the area and will be disaster for Iraq.
As of now, the referendum is going ahead.